When I turned 53, my daughter-in-law threw what she called a surprise party. I remember how my heels clicked softly on the tile as I walked up to the front door of the house I'd lived in for more than 2 decades. Unaware, I was walking into the greatest humiliation of my life. I pushed the door open and was greeted by a wave of pink and gold balloons, streamers cascading from the chandelier I had picked out 25 years ago. The dining room table sparkled with my best china, the set my mother gave me when I got married. But it wasn't the decorations that made my stomach twist into knots. It was the silence. That thick, suffocating kind of silence that settles just before something terrible happens. I stepped inside, my purse still slung over my shoulder, and everyone suddenly stopped talking, their eyes darting toward me. "Surprise!" Alina called out, standing front and center with arms outstretched like a game show hostess revealing a prize. She looked radiant in a cream-colored dress, her long, dark hair pulled into a sleep style, not a strand out of place. Her makeup was flawless, glowing even under the artificial light. She had always been beautiful, but tonight there was something else. Something about her was predatory. I forced a smile. "You didn't have to do all this." She floated over and kissed my cheek, her perfume thick and cloying, like rotting fruit hidden under a layer of sugar. "Of course I did. It's not every day my mother-in-law turns 53. I glanced around the room. My sister, Carolyn, sat rigidly on the couch, eyes locked on her wine glass like it held the answer to a question she didn't want to ask. Our neighbor, Mrs. Barlow, twisted the stem of her own glass with white-knuckled fingers. A few of Alina's friends clustered in the kitchen, whispering behind manicured hands. And then I saw him. Martin. My husband. My partner of 25 years. He stood near the fireplace, hands stuffed deep in his pockets, his face unreadable. He wouldn't look at me. "Where's Daniel?" I asked, scanning for my son. "Business trip," Alina said smoothly. "He sends his love, of course. But don't worry, we've got everything handled." My chest tightened. Daniel had never missed my birthday, not once. He once drove through a blizzard to make it. He'd cut short a honeymoon, canceled important meetings, all just to be here. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. "Come sit down, Evelyn," Martin said, finally acknowledging me, though he couldn't meet my eyes. "We have something for you." I started toward the armchair I sat in every evening after work, the one that still held the shape of my body, the place that had been mine in this house. But Alina stopped me, her manicured hand firm on my arm. "Actually, let's sit at the table. I made your favorite cake." I allowed her to guide me to the head of the table, the seat used only for holidays or special guests. I noticed the cake in front of me. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. I had made that same cake for every birthday in our family for years. But this one wasn't mine. It was too smooth, too perfect. A store-bought imitation of love. Martin stood behind Alina's chair, resting his hands on her shoulders. The familiarity of the gesture made my stomach lurch. "Evelyn," he began, his voice low, rehearsed. "There's no easy way to say this." Alina pulled a manila envelope from her purse and laid it on the table in front of me like a gun being slowly slid across the table during a standoff. "We thought it would be best to do this now, with everyone here, so there are witnesses." My fingers trembled as I picked up the envelope. Inside were legal documents, my name, typed at the top in bold font. I blinked. The words started to take shape. Irreconcilable differences, division of assets, dissolution of marriage, divorce papers. I lifted my head slowly, looking first at Martin. His expression was wooden. Then at Alina, who smirked with the satisfaction of someone who had won a long-fought battle. "We're getting married," she said brightly, "as soon as the divorce is finalized." The room fell into a vacuum of silence. I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Carolyn looked like she might cry. Mrs. Barlow was frozen mid-sip. Everyone else waited for me to scream, to cry, to collapse. But I didn't. I picked up the envelope, neatly tucked the papers back in, and set it aside. I turned to Alina and looked her squarely in the eyes. I noticed the gleam in her smile and how her hand slipped over Martin's again. "Well," I said evenly, "I hope you'll be very happy together." Her smile wavered. I disrupted her script. She wanted a scene, a tantrum, some proof that I had hurt her. "That's it?" she pressed. "That's all you have to say?" I stood, brushed imaginary dust from my skirt, and said calmly, "What else would you like me to say, dear?" She flinched slightly at the word. I had used that tone before, when Daniel had scraped his knee and tried to pretend he wasn't crying. The patronizing softness cut deeper than any insult. "I just thought you might want to discuss the details. The house, the cars, your things. I'm sure Martin's lawyer has everything handled," I said, turning toward the door. "You were always thorough with paperwork." I picked up my purse. "Thank you for the party, and congratulations on your engagement." "Evelyn, wait!" Carolyn called from the couch, standing suddenly. "Let her go," Alina snapped. "She's made her choice." I paused with my hand on the doorknob and looked back one last time. My house, filled with my things, hosting my birthday, but none of it felt like mine anymore. It was a play, and I'd been written out of the final act. "Enjoy the cake," I said. "I hope it tastes as sweet as you imagined." I stepped out into the night without another word. The air was cool on my skin, the silence sharp against my ears after the tension inside. I walked slowly to my car, keys shaking in my hand. Through the windows, I could still see shadows moving, lips whispering. Someone crying. Probably Carolyn. I should have been afraid, devastated. But what I felt instead was clarity. I had nothing left to lose. I booked a room at the Hampton Inn on Route 9, a modest chain hotel that smelled of lemon cleaner and faded dreams. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my birthday dress, the fabric wrinkled now, the dignity peeled away thread by thread. I laid out the divorce papers on the comforter. The language was cold, efficient. My role in Martin's life was reduced to a party of the first part. According to the document, I'd receive a modest allowance and could keep my car. Everything else, the house, the investments, my grandmother's furniture, belonged to Martin, and by extension, to Alina. I should have been gutted. Instead, I felt numb, as though reading a story about someone else. The phone buzzed. A message from Carolyn. "Are you okay? Where are you staying? Please call me." I turned the phone over. I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. I needed to think, to understand how I had missed this. There had to have been signs. There are always signs. I would find them. The next morning, I returned to the house. Martin's car was gone, but Alina's silver Mercedes sat boldly in the driveway. I used my key. It still worked, and stepped inside. "Hello? I'm just here to get some things," I called out. I didn't want to be accused of anything. Alina appeared at the top of the stairs. She was wearing one of my silk robes. One of my robes! She floated down the steps with a smirk playing at her lips. "Evelyn," she said, like she was greeting a guest at brunch. "You're early." "I won't be long," I replied, moving toward the master bedroom. "Actually, Martin thought it might be better if you made a list of what you need. We can pack everything and send it to you." Her words were polite, but her tone was final. I was no longer welcome here. "Of course," I said coolly. How thoughtful of him. I turned and walked toward the guest bedroom instead. There were documents I needed, my birth certificate, social security card, insurance papers. I had filed them all neatly over the years, the way a good wife did. But as I pulled down the boxes from the closet shelf, I found something I hadn't expected. A folder. Manila. Tucked between files like it was trying to stay hidden. I opened it and froze. Photographs. Surveillance style. All of Alina. But not the Alina I knew. Her hair was short, darker. She wore different clothes. She was seen entering buildings I didn't recognize, stepping into cars with strange men. One photo showed her kissing a man who wasn't Martin, or Daniel. Another exchanging an envelope with a woman in a suit. At the bottom was a business card. Mr. Fletcher, private investigator. Discretion guaranteed. My breath caught. I was still flipping through the folder when I heard a voice. "Find what you were looking for?" I turned. Alina stood in the doorway, eyes locked on the folder in my hands. I closed the folder gently, casually, as if I'd just found an old recipe instead of what felt like dynamite wrapped in photographs. "Just collecting my documents," I said, my voice even. Alina stepped further into the room, her gaze not leaving the box in my lap. "Of course," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted you to know, none of this was personal. Martin and I, what we have is real. It just happened." I studied her face. The perfect skin, the flawless makeup, the carefully constructed version of herself. But now I could see the strain in the corners of her mouth, the stiffness in her eyes. The cracks were beginning to show. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Her eyes flickered. "I don't think it's healthy for you to dwell on details," she said, her tone shifting slightly, still sweet but edged with warning. 2 years? 3? I pressed. "Since before you married Daniel?" Her composure slipped for just a moment. "Evelyn," she said, stepping closer, "this isn't helping anyone." "No, but it's clarifying everything." I tucked the folder under my arm and stood. "You're right. What's done is done." I moved to walk past her, but she reached out and grabbed my arm. Her fingers were digging into my skin hard enough to bruise. "That folder," she said low and tight, "doesn't mean what you think it means." I looked down at her hand. Her nails, always immaculately done, were painted a pale pink. Somehow that detail made the whole situation feel more grotesque. I met her eyes. For the first time since I'd known her, I saw fear. Real fear. "I don't think anything," I said quietly, peeling her hand from my arm. "I'm just a discarded wife. What could I possibly know?" I walked out of the room without another word, my legs moving faster than my brain. I didn't stop until I was in my car, the folder beside me on the passenger seat like a live wire. I didn't even start the engine. I just sat there breathing. Then I picked up the business card. Mr. Fletcher. Discretion guaranteed. I dialed the number. It rang twice before a rough voice answered. "Fletcher." "Mr. Fletcher," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "This is Evelyn Matthews. I believe you may have worked for my husband, Martin Matthews." A pause. Then, "Mrs. Matthews, I was wondering when you'd call." "Can we meet?" "I think that would be a very good idea," he said. "There are things you need to know about your daughter-in-law, things your husband chose to ignore." I met him later that afternoon. His office was squeezed between a tax prep service and a pawn shop in a run-down strip mall, the kind of place you'd pass 1,000 times without noticing. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old carpet. Mr. Fletcher looked exactly how I imagined him. Rumpled suit, eyes like he'd seen too much, and an ashtray on his desk despite the no smoking sign. "Your husband hired me 8 months ago," he said, sliding a thick file across the desk. He had suspicions about Alina, though he didn't know her real name then. "What is her real name?" I asked, already knowing it wouldn't be Alina. "Zara Petrowski," he said. "She's 31, not 28. From Chicago. Moved to Florida after some legal trouble. What kind of trouble? I asked. Credit card fraud, identity theft, nothing that stuck, but enough to leave a trail. She has a pattern, finds vulnerable men, inserts herself into their lives, marries into money. My throat tightened. Was she married before Daniel? 3 times. All of them short. Just long enough to access joint accounts, build trust, and then disappear. I opened the file and flipped through pages of surveillance photos. Zara, Alina, with different men, different styles, different cities. In each one, she looked subtly altered. Hair changes, new posture. A chameleon. And Daniel? I whispered. Collateral damage, Mr. Fletcher said, his tone softening. She needed to legitimize herself. Marrying your son gave her credibility. The fact that he actually loves her just made it easier for her to control him. My eyes burned. There was a photo, time-stamped 3 months after their wedding. Alina kissing a man I'd never seen before. Another of her slipping a thick envelope to a woman in a designer coat. Does Martin know all this? Yes, Fletcher replied. I gave him the report 6 months ago. Told him he should show it to Daniel immediately. But he didn't. No. He said he needed time. And 2 months later, he called and told me to stop the investigation. He chose her, I whispered. Over Daniel? Over me? There's more, Fletcher said. He reached for another folder. About 3 months ago, she started meeting regularly with a lawyer, Nathan Briggs, one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. Expensive, cutthroat. She's planning to divorce Daniel? Looks that way, he confirmed. But she needed you out of the way first. As long as you're married to Martin, half of everything is yours. If you're gone, and she can pit Martin and Daniel against each other. I nodded slowly. She gets access to everything. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have imagined. Not just personal, strategic, calculated. What do you recommend I do? Expose her? Fletcher leaned back in his chair. That's one option. But if you want to stop her, if you want to protect your family and hurt her where it counts, we need to play smarter. How? First, you protect yourself. Do you have any accounts Martin doesn't know about? I shook my head. He handled all the finances. Then we start there. He scribbled on a notepad and slid it across the desk. These are joint accounts, the ones with your name still attached. You have the right to half, legally, but you have to move fast before she convinces him to freeze you out. Is that legal? Perfectly. You're still his wife. What's his is yours until the divorce is final. I stared at the list, every account number, every bank, 25 years of trust condensed into a spreadsheet of betrayal. She's also been depositing large sums into a private account, always cash, close to $200,000 in the last 6 months. Where is she getting that kind of money? That's what we're going to find out, he said, because whatever it is, it's not legal. And if we can prove it, we destroy her credibility. Exactly. What do you need from me? Time, access, and for you to act like nothing's changed. She'll try to make you look unstable, bitter, vindictive. Can you handle that? I thought about the woman I'd been. A mother, a wife, a woman who held families together and asked for nothing. That woman was gone. She died in a room filled with pink balloons and chocolate cake. I've been underestimated my whole marriage, I said, standing. It's time I use that to my advantage. I spent the rest of that day emptying 6 joint accounts. Fletcher guided me through it all. Every withdrawal, every transfer. I opened a new account at a different bank under only my name. I stored digital copies of Fletcher's reports in a safety deposit box. That evening, my phone rang. Martin. I let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected. Evelyn, what the hell are you thinking you're doing? The bank called. We need to talk. This is childish and vindictive even for you. I deleted it without listening to the end. Let him panic. Let him squirm. Alina made her move 3 days later. I was having breakfast at the hotel restaurant when she walked in like she owned the place. She sat across from me without asking for coffee. Hello, Evelyn. You've been difficult to reach. Have I? I stabbed a piece of toast. I hadn't noticed. We need to talk about the little stunt you pulled at the bank. Oh, that, I said calmly. They were joint accounts. I assumed I had every right. That money doesn't belong to you anymore. The divorce isn't final. I wiped my mouth with a napkin. Until it is, I'm still Mrs. Matthews. That money is mine. Her smile faltered. For the first time since this game began, I saw the surface of her control ripple. This behavior is only making things harder for Daniel, for Martin, for everyone. Are you threatening me? Of course not, she laughed, falsely. I'm trying to help you. She placed her phone on the table. On the screen was a photo of me leaving Fletcher's office. Private investigators can be useful, she said softly, but they can also be dangerous, especially when they start poking around in places they don't belong. My blood went cold. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. She leaned in closer, her voice a whisper. I'm telling you directly. Stay out of my business, Evelyn. Take your little nest egg and disappear. Go find a condo in Florida, join a book club, and leave my family alone. Your family? Yes, she said, her voice dropping lower. Daniel is my husband. Martin will be soon. And you? You're nobody. Her smile was venomous. A bitter old woman who got replaced by someone younger, prettier, smarter. But she didn't see the fire rising behind my eyes. She didn't realize just how far I was willing to go. I didn't flinch. I didn't rise to her bait. Instead, I calmly reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. Alina's eyes followed every movement, suddenly wary. I scrolled through my camera roll until I reached a screenshot, one I had saved for this exact moment. A local news article from Chicago, the headline loud and damning. Local woman charged with elder abuse and insurance fraud in multi-state scheme. I turned the screen toward her and tapped it once to enlarge the image. Her face, less polished, younger, with darker hair, stared back at her. Zara Petrovsky, I read aloud, savoring every syllable. Age 28 at the time, accused of manipulating elderly men, gaining access to their finances, and draining their savings. Charges dropped due to lack of evidence. Alina, or Zara, sat completely still. Her hands, those perfect, manicured hands, now trembled slightly on the edge of her coffee cup. That's not me, she said flatly, but even she didn't sound convinced. It's funny, I said softly, swiping to the next image, because she looks a lot like you. Same cheekbones, same eyes, even the same dimple in your left cheek when you smile. The next photo was grainier, but unmistakable. It was the one Mr. Fletcher had shown me, the one where she accepted an envelope of cash outside the Meridian building just 6 weeks ago. Care to explain this? I asked, locking eyes with her. She stared down at the phone, her breathing suddenly shallow. Her eyes darted across the room as if looking for an escape. You have no idea what you're doing, she said finally. Don't I? I leaned back, my voice calm now. I think I'm finally seeing everything clearly. You targeted my son. Then you seduced my husband. You orchestrated my birthday party just to humiliate me in front of witnesses. And now you're trying to threaten me over breakfast in a public restaurant? You can't prove any of it, she hissed, her mask cracking. Maybe not in court, I admitted, but I don't need to prove it. I just need to plant enough doubt. What do you think Martin will say if he sees these photos? Or Daniel? Alina's fingers were clenched now. She looked like a puppet with strings pulled too tight. Finally, she pushed back her chair and stood. I need time, she said. You have 24 hours, no more. She didn't reply. She turned on her heel and walked away, her posture crumbling ever so slightly as she passed the hostess stand. I sat frozen for a moment, the adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. I didn't touch my breakfast again. I just watched the door, waiting for her to vanish. But I knew this wasn't over. People like Alina didn't go quietly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the television on in the hotel room, the soft drone of the news anchors filling the space. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a message, a threat, a sign that she'd fled, but nothing came. Not until 3 a.m. when the hotel phone rang. Mom! Daniel's voice was frantic, scared. Something's happened. It's Alina. She's in the hospital. I sat bolt upright. What happened? She said someone attacked her. In the parking lot, she was crying, said she's scared someone's going to come back for her. She wants to see you. Daniel, I started, but he interrupted. Please, I know things are complicated right now, but she asked for you. I grabbed my coat and keys and rushed out. The emergency room was chaos when I arrived. Harsh lights, the smell of antiseptic, the constant rhythm of beeping machines, and muffled voices. Daniel was pacing in the hallway, his face pale, his hair a mess. She has a concussion, bruises. She keeps saying they're coming back. Before I could respond, a nurse approached. She's asking for someone named Evelyn. That's me. Daniel looked at me, relief etched across his face. Go, please. I followed the nurse down a long hallway to a small room. Alina, Zara, was lying in a hospital bed, her head wrapped in bandages, her face pale and puffy. Evelyn, she whispered when she saw me. Thank God. I approached slowly, unsure of what to believe. Daniel said someone attacked you. She glanced toward the door, then leaned closer, grabbing my wrist. We need to talk alone. Daniel is just outside. Please. I hesitated, then stepped toward the door and asked the nurse to give us a minute. Daniel nodded and stepped out. The moment the door closed, Alina's posture changed completely. She sat upright, her grip tightening on my wrist. You clever bitch. You think you won? I yanked my hand back. What are you talking about? You called them my creditors, told them where I was. I didn't. Don't lie to me, she hissed the words. Your little investigator's been asking questions, enough questions that my name is now back on their radar. They think you're involved. I haven't. It doesn't matter, she waved her hand. The damage is done. And now? They're watching you. Your son, Martin. My heart stopped. What did you do? I did what I had to do, she whispered. And now you're going to help me fix it. How? 2 million. Cash. Untraceable. That's what it will take to make them go away. You're insane. I'm dead without it. We don't have that kind of money. Yes, you do, she said coldly. The house, the investments, Martin's business. Liquidate everything. No! Then watch your family get ripped apart, one by one. The door opened again, and Daniel stepped in. Is everything okay? Alina's voice shifted instantly, soft and frail. I'm scared. They said they'd hurt you, hurt your mother, Martin too. Daniel rushed to her side. Who? Who said that? She just looked at me over his shoulder, her meaning clear. You opened this door. Now you're the one who has to close it. I stood frozen at the foot of the hospital bed, watching Alina cry into Daniel's shoulder, each sob perfectly timed like a script she'd rehearsed 1,000 times. He held her tightly, whispering that everything would be okay, that he wouldn't let anything happen to her. I wanted to scream, to rip the bandage from her forehead and expose the fraud beneath. But I couldn't, not without destroying my son. We need to call the police, Daniel said firmly. No, Alina's eyes went wide with panic. She clutched his hand like it was her last lifeline. That'll make it worse. They said if I talked to anyone, they'd hurt the people I love. I watched her performance with a bitter taste in my mouth. It was masterful, equal parts vulnerability and terror. And worst of all, it was working. The only way out is to give them what they want, she whispered. Daniel turned to me, his face pale. Mom, what is she talking about? What's going on? I hesitated. The truth caught in my throat. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, protected, loved, and realized there was no safe way to answer. It's complicated, sweetheart, I said softly. Then uncomplicate it, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. My wife is in the hospital, my whole family is apparently in danger, and you won't even tell me what's happening. Alina gently squeezed his hand. It's not her fault, Daniel. She was just trying to protect you. But she hired someone who started digging into my past, and now they think I'm hiding from them. I flinched. The way she spun it, truth laced with lies, was brilliant. You investigated her? Daniel looked at me like I was a stranger. Michael, I corrected myself. Daniel, I was trying to keep you safe. I didn't trust her. I knew something was wrong. So you went behind my back, spied on my wife? To protect you. From what? From being happy? The pain in his voice cut deeper than anything Alina could have said. You never gave her a chance. From the day we got engaged, you looked for reasons to hate her. That's not true, isn't it? He demanded. Dad told me you've been acting unstable ever since the divorce. You emptied the accounts, made accusations, and now this? Hiring investigators? Bringing danger into our lives? Your father said that? He said you might need help, that you're not thinking clearly. I could barely breathe. Alina lay back on the bed, her tears perfectly timed. Daniel, please don't fight. Not now. He turned back to her, and I saw it, the exact moment she won. I'm taking her somewhere safe, he said, not looking at me. Somewhere you can't reach us, and I don't want you contacting us until you get help. Daniel! I love you, Mom, but I love my wife too, and right now she needs protection from you. The door clicked softly behind him as they left. I stood there, heart pounding, the sterile hospital lights burning above me. Alina's mask dropped the moment we were alone. 47 hours, she said sweetly. I'd start liquidating assets if I were you. These people don't wait. I left the hospital in a daze, the beeping machines and murmured voices still ringing in my ears. I drove without thinking, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I didn't go back to the hotel. I drove straight to Mr. Fletcher's office, banging on the door like a madwoman. He opened it wearing yesterday's shirt and a 5 o'clock shadow. Mrs. Matthews? You called her creditors. You told them where to find her. He stepped back and gestured for me to come in. Sit down, breathe. Tell me what's going on. Alina is in the hospital, says she was attacked. She thinks her life and our lives are in danger because of you. I've been here all night, he said calmly. I didn't make any calls. Then who did? He motioned for me to sit across from his cluttered desk. There's something you need to see. He pulled out a folder thicker than the last and flipped it open. I went deeper into her past, like you asked. That debt she mentioned, it's not what she told you. What do you mean? She doesn't owe anyone. She stole from someone. $800,000 from a cancer charity in Chicago. My stomach dropped. What? The charity was run by a man named Edgar Whitman. She volunteered there for almost a year, gained his trust, gained access to the books. Then she siphoned off the money slowly, carefully. When he confronted her, she disappeared. The FBI's been looking for her for 6 months. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But she said someone attacked her. No one attacked her. He looked tired. I've been monitoring the hospital security feeds. She walked in on her own, checked herself in. There's no record of an ambulance. The wound on her head, superficial, self-inflicted. I sat back, stunned. It was all an act? She needed to stall, he said. to create confusion, to keep you and your son fighting instead of asking the right questions. I've lost them, I whispered. Daniel thinks I'm crazy, Martin thinks I'm vindictive, and she's winning. Not yet, Fletcher said. She asked you for money, right, to disappear? 2 million, untraceable. And you said no? I came here instead. Then she hasn't won. He picked up his phone and dialed. Agent Rhodes, it's Fletcher. I have something you're going to want to hear. He rattled off the details: aliases, hospital location, embezzlement. When he hung up, he looked at me seriously. The FBI will be at the hospital within an hour. But before they get there, you need to decide something. What? What do you want more, your family or justice? What do you mean? If she's arrested now, the truth comes out, everything. But Daniel may never forgive you. He might always blame you for destroying his marriage. I stared at him, the weight of the decision suffocating. What would you recommend? He said, let me handle it. Go home. Act surprised when the news breaks. Let her destroy herself. I don't have a home anymore, I said bitterly. Actually, you do. He reached into his desk and pulled out a set of keys. Martin never changed the locks. You still have legal right to the house until the divorce is finalized. I stared at the keys, suddenly unsure of everything. He'll be furious. He'll be distracted, he said. Tomorrow he'll have bigger problems. An hour later, I stood in front of the house I'd lived in for 25 years. Martin's car was in the driveway. Alina's Mercedes was gone. I slipped the key into the lock and entered, my heart pounding. The silence inside was deafening. I wandered through the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, each room packed with memories. Birthdays, holidays, ordinary dinners that once felt like rituals. Upstairs, I paused outside the master bedroom. The door was cracked. Inside, Martin lay asleep. In the soft light, he looked older than I remembered, the lines around his mouth deeper. The weight of guilt etched across his sleeping face. I stood there for a long moment, watching him. This man I had loved, trusted, grown old with. Tomorrow he would learn the truth, that the woman he had chosen over me was a criminal, that he had destroyed our family for a lie. I turned and walked to the guest room. I lay down on the bed, still fully dressed, and for the first time in days, I slept. At 6 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. It was my sister. Evelyn, have you seen the news? What news? Turn on Channel 7, now. I grabbed the remote with trembling hands. The lead story flashed across the screen. A woman arrested at St. Mary's Hospital, wanted in connection with the embezzlement of over $800,000 from a cancer charity in Chicago. The suspect had been living under multiple aliases, most recently Alina Matthews. I stared as they showed her in handcuffs, her hair disheveled, her face streaked with smeared makeup. Gone was the polished woman who had stood in my living room holding my divorce papers. Oh my God, Carolyn whispered through the phone. How did no one know? Because she was good. Very good. I heard footsteps downstairs. Martin. I went to the living room. He was standing there, still in his pajamas, staring at the television in stunned silence. Evelyn, he said when he saw me, how did you... I still live here, I said simply, until the divorce is finalized. Did you see? He gestured at the TV. I don't understand. She seems so perfect. She was good at her job. Very good, I said. I destroyed our marriage for this. Yes, I said. You did. He buried his face in his hands. Daniel! Someone needs to call Daniel. I already tried. He's not answering. We sat in silence watching the news scroll through every one of Alina's lies. Every marriage, every alias, every crime, each word another nail in the coffin of the life we once had. Can you ever forgive me? Martin asked quietly. I looked at him, the man I had once loved, trusted, grown old with, and I truly didn't know. I don't know. I don't know if I want to. My phone rang again. Daniel's name lit up the screen. Mom, can you come get me? I'm at the Marriott downtown, room 412, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please, just come. I'm on my way, I told him, grabbing my purse with trembling hands. Martin stood and moved toward me. Let me come too. He's my son, Evelyn. I paused, staring at him. My grip tightened on the doorknob. No, Martin, this is something Daniel and I need to do alone. He didn't argue. He just stood there, small and hollow, as I walked out the door. It felt strange to be driving through the quiet morning streets, the sun just beginning to rise above the city skyline. The roads were mostly empty, and the silence gave me too much space to think. I had imagined this moment so many different ways. Daniel finally seeing the truth, finally understanding. But never like this. Never with him broken. I knocked gently on the hotel room door. It opened almost instantly. Daniel stood there, wearing the same clothes from the night before, dark circles under his eyes, his face pale and drawn. "Hi," I said softly. He didn't answer. He just pulled me into a hug. A real hug. One I hadn't felt from him in years. One that wasn't distracted or distant, but full of grief and relief all at once. We stood like that for a long time. When we finally sat on the edge of the bed, he spoke first. "I said terrible things to you." "You were defending the person you loved," I said. "That's not something to be ashamed of." "But you were right about all of it, and I didn't listen." "You wanted to believe in her. There's nothing wrong with that, Daniel." He rubbed his face with his hands. "She manipulated me, lied about everything. I let her turn me against you. I don't even know who I am anymore." I reached for his hand. "You're still my son. That's who you are." "How did she fool me for so long?" he asked, his voice cracking. "She fooled all of us," I said. "Even Martin. Especially Martin. And now everything's ruined. Our family. It's not ruined. It's changed. But we're still here." He leaned his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was little and had nightmares. We sat like that, mother and son, both trying to piece together what was left. "What happens now?" he finally asked. I exhaled slowly. We figure out who we are without her. All of us. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, a bright, open space overlooking the river. It was mine. Every chair, every dish, every flower on the windowsill had been chosen by me. I wasn't Evelyn the wife or Evelyn the mother. I was just Evelyn. And that was enough. My phone buzzed. "Daniel, the trial starts next week. Do you think I should be there? Do you want to be?" "Not really," he admitted. "But maybe I need to be, for closure." Closure doesn't come from watching other people get what they deserve. It comes from what you build after. Yeah, I guess I just needed to hear that. "You'll be okay. You're stronger than you think. I learn from the best." After we hung up, I stood on the balcony a while longer, letting the wind brush through my hair. Somewhere out there, Martin was likely sitting in the old house, filled with old regrets. Zara, was behind bars, awaiting a trial that would no doubt result in a long prison sentence. Her crimes stretched back years, across states and families, all leading to this final collapse. And me? I was free. Not from pain. It still found me sometimes late at night when the world was too quiet. Not from regret. There were things I'd always wished I'd done differently. But I was free from being defined by anyone else's choices. Free to choose for myself, perhaps for the first time in my adult life. I had walked out of my own birthday party with nothing but the clothes on my back and my dignity intact. And somehow, in the wreckage, I had found something I hadn't even known I was missing. Myself. Now, as I look back on everything that happened, I find myself wondering about you, the one who listened to my story. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted? Have you ever had to rebuild your life from the ashes of someone else's lies? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how far my story has reached. And if you made it this far, thank you. I'm leaving 2 other stories on the screen now. They're favorites on this channel, and they just might surprise you.